Reading with your kids.
Hey, so great to see you. Come on in. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast, an iHeartRadio Best Kids and Family Podcast Award nominee. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville, in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts, in the shadow of the Great Blue Hills. We are really excited that you are part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. Our guest today is Brian Weisfeld. He is the author of Face the Music, and that is part of Brian's Startup Squad series. We're really excited because today we're going to be talking about empowering girls and guys to be entrepreneurs and to start thinking in an entrepreneurial way. And that's exciting for me, and I think it should be exciting for you too. With so many authors who listen to the show, and one thing authors don't realize is that once they become a published author, whether it's with a traditional publishing house, with a small publishing house, or doing it on their own, self-publishing, the minute you publish that book, you become an entrepreneur, and you become the person most responsible for marketing your fantastic children's book. And that is a challenge, especially nowadays, because things like book signings and school visits and library visits, they're just not happening. And we have no idea when they will be happening. The CDC has been releasing some guidelines for schools to reopen safely, and they don't include school assemblies or visits from outside guests. So one of the ways that we are helping authors let people know about their books is our Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program. This is a great program that lets families know that your book is worthy of their consideration. Lori Olinsky, who has an extensive background in marketing, is a two-time Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read author. She tells me she loves the program because it gives her more confidence when she's speaking to other folks about her book. You can find out more by going to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the Author Services button that you'll find in the menu. You can also speak directly to our author ambassador, Peggy Cotto, and you can reach Peggy by sending her an email, peggy@jedley.com. That's Jedlie, jedley.com. Joining us on the line right now from Silicon Valley in California. He is the author of a brand new book called Face the Music. It's part of the Startup Squad series. Please welcome to the show, Brian Weisfeld. Brian, how are you?
Thank you, Jed. I'm doing as well as anyone else, given the crazy world that we're living in right now.
It is a crazy world we are living in. This is I lost count of the pandemic.
I think we all have.
And we're just, looking forward to getting back to the point where we can be together and be with our extended families in a safe way, in a smart way. Until then, it's great to be able to have conversations about great books, great things we can read together, and great things we can do together. And that's what the Face the Music's all about. Brian, why don't you tell us a little bit about the book and also a little bit about the Startup Squad series?
Certainly. My background is in helping entrepreneurs scale and build their businesses. So I was part of a 3-person team that bought IMAX, the giant screen movie theater company, in the early 90s and turned it into what it was today. And then I was the chief operating officer of coupons.com and helped to build that company. But I've got 2 daughters, and when my older daughter was 8, I saw her try to sell Girl Scout cookies and run a charity bake sale, and she was really excited to do it, but she had no idea how to get someone to buy a product from her. And she didn't even know the basics of, like, you're supposed to look people in the eye and how to get their attention. And that was part of my inspiration to create the Startup Squad, which is a novel series meant to get primarily girls, but boys as well, interested in entrepreneurship, get them excited about opening up that first lemonade stand or bake sale and start to think like an entrepreneur. And Face the Music is the second book in the series, and we're really excited to have it out in the world.
I have to tell you, I am so excited about this, and I think this is so very, very important. I was one of those kids who in college I was going into social work, going into human services, business. I thought was evil, wanted nothing to do with it, didn't want to know about it. Someone at encouraged me to join Junior Achievement. And when I figured out what it was, I'm like, no way, I'm not part of this. What a silly person I was, because I quickly learned that business is around us, and no matter what we want to do, it really makes a lot of sense to have an idea of what business is and how it works.
Yeah, and even not just the business stuff, but what we say is we're not trying to, we don't think every kid should grow up to be an entrepreneur. What we want is kids to grow up with an entrepreneurial mindset. We want them to be comfortable with risk and comfortable with failure and to see opportunities instead of problems and to learn how to sell something, even if it's just right now it's a cup of lemonade, but someday, they'll be selling their ideas or selling a podcast or selling something. And just to get them to think in that entrepreneurial way, because regardless of the path that they choose, business or not, a teacher, a doctor, a lawyer, whatever you're going to do when you grow up, an entrepreneurial mindset will help you be more successful in that. And that's what we're all about. Let's use that first lemonade stand or bake sale and get kids just to start to think like entrepreneurs, because it'll help them down the road.
One of the things you just said is something we've talked about in many different forms here on the podcast. The idea of encouraging our kids to take risks. I see so many parents out there, not only of young kids today, but of parents who are of kids who are my kids' peers, kids who are in their 20s. They did the opposite. They bubble wrapped their kids and they kept their kids away from all risks. They didn't let them play in sports where they were keeping score, and kids just never had a chance to fall down, scrape their knees, and then get up and realize, well, that wasn't fun, but it's not the end of the world, and I can move forward.
Yeah, when I as you do, I talk to a lot of school groups and a lot of kids, and one of the things that I say to them is, I say, hey, have you ever heard the expression win some, lose some? Well, entrepreneurs don't say that. Entrepreneurs say win some, learn some. Because they know even if they fail, they're going to learn something that's going to help them succeed the next time. And I tell kids that when Beyonce was 9 years old, she was on Star Search and she lost. And can you imagine, Beyonce lost a talent show when she was 9, but she didn't say, I guess I'll become a chef now. Mm-hmm. She just kept working harder. And I tell them that Michael Jordan got cut from his high school basketball team. And to this day, he says it's one of the best things that ever happened to him, because he promised himself he was never going to get cut again. He was going to work harder than anyone else. And so that risk and taking that risk and getting comfortable with failure is so important. There's a famous story, Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, who's one of the most successful self-made women in the world, says when she was growing up around the dinner table, her dad used to say to her and her siblings, tell me something you failed at this week. And if they had something they failed at, they'd get a high five. And if they didn't, he'd be disappointed. Because he knew that if you weren't failing, that means you weren't pushing yourself and you weren't taking new risks. And that's one of the big things that we're all about. Entrepreneurship, even a lemonade stand, more people are going to say no than yes. Mm-hmm. And how do you recover from that no and not take it personally and learn from it and move on and do a better job selling to the next person?
Boy, oh boy, that is something that is so important. When I transitioned from human services to doing educational magic shows, one of the toughest lessons I had to learn was I had to hear a whole lot of schools say no to my show before I got one to say yes. And, now I teach kids, young people now, it's like, if you get 5 yeses and 100 no's, you're doing really well. Yeah.
So I actually did a TED Talk about my journey from being an entrepreneur to becoming an author, and it's all I tell some of these stories about the failures and the rejections, and obviously publishing. I do this with the kids. I show the kids all my rejection letters. I was like, hey, look, this is Scholastic, the publisher that runs those book fairs. Yeah, they rejected me. This is my letter. And I tell them the story of some brutal rejections. I had a publisher that I submitted the first 10 pages of the manuscript to, give me feedback where she said that my writing for kids was so bad, she was surprised to find out that I actually had children. That it was brutal, but it was a message that I needed to hear at the time I needed to hear it. And so life is all about getting past that failure and getting past the rejection. And, as I said, just a simple lemonade stand is such a great way to get your kids started to learn. And it's something that you can do together with the whole family.
And I think it's really important too. And I love that you mentioned this is something we can do together. Parents, I don't think, realize how much pressure they put on kids at a very early age to get into that great college. You got to do well in school because you have to go to college. You have to get into Harvard. You have to get into Stanford. You have to get in. And no one talks about, well, how are you going to pay for that? How, it's just, you got to do this. But wow, there's a real reality. And what a great way to kind of give your kids goals, but also teaching them how they can achieve those goals and make those goals come true.
Yeah, there's a statistic that says, I think it's something like 65 or 85% of all the jobs that our kids today are going to grow up to fill have not been invented yet. Mm-hmm. So the question is, how do you prepare a kid to get ready for a future that doesn't currently exist? And I think you got to teach them how to think. Mm-hmm. You got to teach them how to be comfortable with that risk and how to see those opportunities instead of problems, and you have that way of thinking, because you can't train for those jobs. So and also, frankly, this isn't just about training your kid for the future. It's just fun. I mean, you think about, people go think back at their first lemonade stand or their first bake sale. When I was a kid, I bought 95 pounds of gummy bears, and I hired all my sixth grade friends to sell them. And we sold gummy bears. That was my first business. And so it's just a really fun activity. And especially now, we all need fun activities. But at the same time, you're building skills for your kid and building a mindset in them that will help them succeed down the road.
I love, you've said it twice so far, but I really want to emphasize this. Helping kids develop the mindset where they're not seeing problems, they're seeing opportunities. Can you talk a little bit more about that and how we can kind of help our kids develop that mindset?
Yeah, so let me give you an example. There's a girl by the name of Alina Morse who lives in Michigan, and when she was 7, she went to the bank with her dad, and the teller offered her a lollipop. And her dad said, like most parents would do, lollipops aren't really great for your teeth. Mm-hmm. And Alina said, so there's the problem. Lollipops aren't good for your teeth. And she said, well, you know what? People love eating lollipops. So why can't there be a lollipop that's good for your teeth? And so she did a little research and realized that there's this thing called xylitol that they put in gum for adults, and it makes your teeth stronger. And she figured out how to put it in lollipops and started a line of lollipops called Zollipops. Well, Alina was just the youngest person ever on the cover of Entrepreneur magazine.
Oh, my goodness.
At age 14, and you can buy Zollipops in Target and Walmart and supermarkets across the United States.
That is incredible.
She saw a problem, which is lollipops aren't good for you, and used it as an opportunity. And so it's really just a way to, the next time your kid is complaining about a toy that broke or something that doesn't work the way they did, have them think about, well, how would you fix it? There's another girl by the name of Rachel Zeiss who grew up in Florida. She played lacrosse, and she found that all the lacrosse equipment out there was either not of a very good quality or just way too expensive. So she started her own lacrosse company as a teenager, and now her product, Gladiator Lacrosse, is one of the leading lacrosse equipment suppliers. So just anytime the kid has a complaint or there's an issue, how would they solve it? Have them think through what would be a better way. What would make this better? What would you want to buy? How would you solve it? And then see, maybe they'll go ahead and do it.
I think I saw Rachel on an episode of Shark Tank.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah,
yes.
I don't think she got a deal, but I know that she left there with a smile on her face. She was just, it wasn't, her dream wasn't crushed. She just was more determined to make her dream in her business a success. Unlike me trying to say that word.
Yeah, it was definitely, I think it was a win some, learn some opportunity for her.
I love that. Win some, learn some. Okay, so we have a parent listening right now to this. They're not business people. They didn't have a chance to sell lemonade when they were kids. They've never sold anything in their life. What's step one for them to help their kids develop that lemonade stand and have that great experience together?
So we realize that a lot of parents and a lot of educators don't have that business background. And so what we try to do is we try to create a lot of resources to help. We have a lot of resources on our website, thestartupsquad.com, to help parents understand some of these basics. But also the way the books are structured is to do exactly that. So the books are essentially, I describe them as part inspiration, part information, and part aspiration. So the books are a novel series. Think of them as the Babysitter's Club meets Lean In. It's a novel about these 4 sixth grade girls, and in book 1, their class is going on a field trip to the local amusement park, and to raise money for the trip, the kids have to get put into teams, and each team has to start a competing lemonade stand. And so the novel itself is very light on the business stuff and much heavier on the friends and families and school and pets and those sorts of things you expect in a book written for 7 to 14-year-olds. But then in the back of the book, we have a nonfiction section that says, hey, remember when in the story the girls were making a big sign for their lemonade stand? Well, that's actually called marketing. And here's some marketing tips you can use. And so in the back of the book, we have tips that the parents and the kids can use about sales and marketing and merchandising and location in the first book. And in the second book, we cover revenue and profit and negotiation and customer service. And then in the very back of the book, as an aspirational point, we have an interview with some of these kids' CEOs. So we have an interview in our latest book, Face the Music, with a girl by the name of Emma who lives in Oklahoma, who couldn't wear metal post earrings, because they would irritate her ears, and realized that there are some plastic post earrings, but she wasn't happy with the quality or the selection. And so she started a business called Earrings by Emma. And it's grown so big that now the whole family is helping to run this business. And so we have an interview with her in the back of the book. So the idea is that the kids get inspired by the story. They say, hey, that sounds like fun. I want to start a lemonade stand too. We give them the tools so they and their parents can do a better job when they launch that business. And then we make them realize that it doesn't have to be a small business just because you're a kid. You can actually run a big business too.
That's incredible. Now, I know that you were inspired by your daughters, but why the focus on girls?
So 2 things. One is part of this was seeing my daughter, as I said, try to sell Girl Scout cookies, but also my frustration at what I viewed as some of the less than empowering influences out there for girls. Mm-hmm. I wanted something that would, uplift my girls at the same time that it would inspire them. And, when I talk to schools and I talk to libraries and all across the country, I talk on a co-ed basis, and I talk about the importance of the entrepreneurial mindset for all kids. But we describe ourselves as girl-targeted and boy-inclusive. Right now, obviously, women in the workplace don't have the same opportunities that a lot of men do. They're getting paid 80 cents on the dollar. And so this is something that I wanted for my girls, and so that's why the girl focus. But as I said, we're girl-targeted but boy-inclusive.
So how are you including boys in this? Are you finding that guys are wanting to read a novel about girls?
Yeah, there's nothing anti-boy about it. The only thing is there are the main characters are girls, and all the important role models in it are girls as well. But there are certainly, there's nothing anti-boy about it, and there's no reason why a boy can't pick up a book about girl characters just as a girl reads plenty of books about boy characters. Mm-hmm. So we don't describe the book as being for boys or for girls. We're, for all kids. We're certainly targeted to girls, but there's certainly no reason why boys can't enjoy the story of the Startup Squad and be inspired to start their first business as well.
Yeah. Brian, what do you think schools can do to better support and encourage kids to develop that entrepreneurial mindset?
So there are ways to work entrepreneurship into almost every area. There's a group called the Consortium for Entrepreneurship Education, or EntreEd, that runs a conference for entrepreneurship educators. And when I was there, I met with teachers from all different walks of subjects and different education, about how they can incorporate entrepreneurship into their program. So, the family and consumer science class teachers, what growing up I used to call home ec. There were some teachers there who were like, hey, we make all this stuff. Let's start a school store. Let's, if we're baking all this stuff, let's put a cart together. And during the break, we'll sell the stuff in the hallways, and we can use the money to either donate to a local charity or to raise money for a school or for some new piece of equipment for the family and consumer science department. So there's definitely ways to work entrepreneurship we have a teacher's guide that goes along with the book that is Common Core aligned, but also works in, obviously, there's a lot of math applications in figuring out your profit and your costs, and there's a lot of obviously education, English as well. And so there's a lot of different ways to work entrepreneurship into the classroom.
Yeah.
And sorry, let me just one more.
Sure.
And the most important thing is that mindset of risk and failure. Embrace the failure. Obviously, not failure from a grade perspective, but for kids that, raise their hand to take a risk or try a project that doesn't work, celebrate them. Send them back to their chair with applause instead of having them, have their head tucked down.
Well, that is one of the things that I've noticed, and especially in different areas of education. And I think that happens a lot on college campuses. We say, yes, there are no dumb questions, but boy, oh boy, there are some kids who, we have some examples in public life where people will make a suggestion and say, I heard this. Could we do that? And boy, people just jump on them. And a lot of times it's just innocent, but it seems like sometimes if you take a chance and you say the wrong thing or something that somebody can find offense in, they just get hammered. And I'm imagining kids who experience that or who see that sit down and say, well, I ain't taking a risk. I'm not going to put myself up there and get hammered like that.
Yeah, but that same kid is, when they're thinking of the answer in the back of their head and they're afraid to raise their hand, and another kid raises their hand and gives that same exact answer, and the teacher says, oh yeah, great answer. That's a different kind of feeling of, oh, I left out. I couldn't do it. And, we have to teach kids it's okay to fail. What's not okay is not taking that risk. And, I've seen it with my own daughter, who was a shy 8-year-old kid who didn't know how to sell Girl Scout cookies, didn't know you're supposed to look people in the eye, and just how running those simple businesses made her more comfortable in talking to people and gave her more self-confidence and made her more comfortable in raising her hand and speaking out and doing all those things. It's just, you just learn so many important life skills just from those simple childhood businesses. And, as I said, yeah, certainly you're not always going to succeed in life, but Michael Jordan didn't quit when he got cut from that high school basketball team, and Beyonce didn't give up. And you gotta learn to push past them, and now is a great time to do it.
Yeah. It sounds like you're just encouraging kids to do some real critical thinking out there and take risks.
Yeah, absolutely. We're trying to get that entrepreneurial mindset into our kids today, and we'll create the next generation of future leaders.
Now, Face the Music is the second book in the series. I know it's early, but have there been any readers of the first book who've gone out there and created their own successful business that you've heard of?
Yeah, so I'll give you a couple of examples. I met a girl who was selling these beautiful candles and tie-dye t-shirts and soaps in different shapes. And I said to her, I was like, oh my God, this stuff is beautiful. This can't be your first business. And she said, no, it's my second. And I said, what was your first business? And she said, I had a lemonade stand once. And I said, you got to be kidding me. I mean, this stuff is beautiful. You could see it on in a boutique in any major city. How'd you go from a lemonade stand to this? And she said, well, her mom was there, and her mom says, well, you came to speak at her school, and she got inspired to do it. I'll give you another one, which is, so I had another, a daughter of a friend of ours finish the book, and then that weekend open up a lemonade stand in front of their house. And they were so proud that, and she was all over it. 2 weeks later, they got a note home from school from her teacher asking them to tell her to please stop selling slime in the classroom because it was disrupting class too much. And so as they're telling me this story, I had to, put on my parent hat and say, oh yeah, sorry your kid got in trouble. But I was going, yeah, good for her.
That's awesome. Well, I love it. I think that what your mission is just wonderful. I think it's absolutely needed. And so where can folks go online to find out more about the Startup Squad?
So the startupsquad.com is our website. On social media, we are all over the place at the Startup Squad. And the book, both the first book and Face the Music, are available truly wherever books are sold. We would love for everyone to go and support their independent bookstores, which are struggling right now. I know a lot of them are still doing shipping or curbside pickup, but please support them. But certainly you can go online and buy the book at any of the major booksellers as well.
We've had a blast speaking to the author of Face the Music, part of the Startup Squad series, Brian Weisfeld. Brian, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Jed, and I hope everyone stays safe and healthy out there.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. It's another Solve It for Kids episode of the show. We're so excited. Our guest will be Shar Selby. He'll be talking to us about how we can use technology to help conservation. That's the next episode of the show. Don't miss it. And make sure your kids are with you to listen with you. Speaking of kids and fun things we can do with our kids, please be sure to check out WeWillRoar.com. It's where you can find out more about my educational magic show, We Will Roar, Respect Others and Read. It's a really fantastic show, and it's now available on Zoom. That's right, we're presenting totally interactive, live, magical experiences for kids through the magic of technology. We can do this with any classroom, anywhere in the world. It is incredibly affordable and really a whole lot of fun. Check it out. Go to WeWillRoar.com. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so very wonderful. Of course, I want to thank our guest, Brian Weisfeld. Be sure to check out Face the Music. I also want to thank my incredible team, starting with my amazing producer, Fatima Khan, my awesome author, Ambassador Peggy Cotto. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. I want to thank Augie the doggy for having my back here in the studio. But most of all, I want to thank you. You are amazing. You are your kid's teacher. You are your kid's cook and chef and Uber driver and friend. And because of that, the world's a better place. I mean it. Thanks so much. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.